And welcome back, everyone, to the Zanpakuto Creation Series. From a card to player 1, we have the question of what is the Zanpakuto of Chad? Another Bleach character who is never a Shinigami in the series. So we actually are left wondering what would happen if he had gone the Shinigami path. Now, we know that Chad and actually Orihime are both Fullbringers, as it turns out. It's not really, we never really talk about the fact that that Orihime is also a Fullbringer, but she is in fact also a Fullbringer. Because the way a Fullbringer works, essentially, okay, actually that's not entirely true. It's, well, I mean, give me one second. I need to confirm that real quick as I'm talking right out the gate. So Fullbringers, generally speaking, have to kind of be born Fullbringers. Basically, something happens where their mothers were attacked by hollows or something like that, and a little bit of that energy, a little bit of the hollow nature siphoned into them. That's the general gist of a Fullbringer. I am simplifying it to the max, but that's the general gist of a Fullbringer. Orihime, on the other hand, doesn't quite fall into that category. But she has had exposure to hollows, and as they more or less state, her powers more or less manifested because she was around Ichigo for so long. Same with like everyone else, that his spiritual pressure allowed them to form powers. So she's not exactly a Fullbringer, but she's as close to a Fullbringer without actually being labeled one. But we're talking about Chaz. Chaz is for Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Chad. But because the nature of a Fullbringer is essentially they're able to manipulate the souls and spirits of things and have their own personal connection to certain things, which allows them to manifest their Fullbring weaponry and whatnot, devices, we can essentially turn a Fullbring into a Zanpakuto. We might have to alter it a little bit, but we can do that. So Chad would most likely have a katana as a standard Zanpakuto. It's basically a specialized melee type Zanpakuto. Now, shocker, his Shikai his Shikai would be his arms, the two armored arms that he gains. But this is where we get interesting here. Now, unlike other Zanpakutos, I fully believe that this would be a unique case where it has two, maybe even three, release commands, depending on what he wants to do. If he wants to use his left arm's abilities, he would go guard the path. Right arm of the giant, or Kyonji no Migido. If he wants to use his left arm's abilities, he'd go move the path. Left arm of the devil, or Akuma no Hidaridu. So, and then the spirit, I do think, takes the form of someone who looks akin to his grandfather. So, as a Zanpakuto, it would manifest as the two arms he has. One is used more for defensive purposes, but does have an offensive ability. That's a weird thing. The right arm is supposed to be the defensive arm. It has a shield function to it, but it also does have an offensive function to it as well, where the left arm is all offense. But I think the difference between the left arm and the right arm is the right arm surely has enhanced strength, but its ability is actually a ranged attack. Whereas the left arm is pure melee and far more powerful than the right arm in terms of raw power. So, in his early days as a Shinigami, he would be training with trying to use both these at the same time. Probably wouldn't work, so he'd just be, choosing which one he wants to use. And I think as he got stronger, he'd be able to alternate between them. So if he's using his right arm and he uses the block, he could still say the command and just say guard the path, and just go from guard the path to just move, and then guard, move, guard, move, guard. And essentially, he can switch between the two when he needs to. However, with enough training, as we see in later parts of the series, he is able to manifest both of them at the same time. And I think that the new release command for that would be move. The new trying to think here. I didn't actually stop and think what the new release command would be for this. But the new release command would be probably something along the lines of move the enemy and guard your friends, or guard the weak and move the enemy. Something like that. And so that would release the Bankai, which it's a very simple name actually for the Bankai. The Devil's Skin, or Akuma no Hada. Now, why is that the name of this? Well, because his Fulbring is connected not to that pendant, which you would think it would be, but it's connected to his skin. He takes pride in his muscles, his body. Those are the things he values in himself, and he uses them to protect people. This is why. Side note, Chess gets so sidelined. Chess is as they say in Bleacher Bridge. You ever heard of the Worf effect? It's when a character's really strong but keeps losing to prove how strong the bad guy is. That's kind of Chad a little bit. They keep emphasizing his training in a lot of these arcs, and you think, okay, maybe he's going to get a whole suit of armor or something like that. No, which is stupid because you see him training in the Fulbring arc. And you see him training for the Soul King's Palace as well, and they never expand on his abilities. There was so much more room, I think, for there. I think, as much as I love Bleach, I do. It is my personal favorite of the big three. I think they dropped the ball on Chad a little bit at the end there. Or Kubo did. Regardless, though, his Bankai would essentially manifest the armor. Would manifest the full kind of suit effect. And would just re-emphasize these effects. In fact, he would heighten these effects to their logical conclusion. Apart from just wearing a full 50-50 split yin-yang suit of armor. When he uses, say, his left arm, which is the melee offensive one, uses Le Morta, or the Death, which, real quick, the Death would translate in Japanese to the Death. Would just translate to sheep. So just sheep. Boom. And I think to expand on its power, the arm itself could grow, kind of like Choji's arm could grow. It could expand to a giant size to hit more of an area and just boom, release more power. Or conversely, he could maybe kind of do what Kensei's able to do and shrink his fist down as concentrated as possible. And instead of just using a fist, he could also, use a hand in a stabbing motion, concentrate all the power into one small point. Conversely, the defensive aspects and the range attack of the right arm would also be enhanced. Now, I think and I also would say these abilities would carry over to the leg part of his body as well. I think that's fair to say. Beyond that, though, he could just stick his arm in the ground. Instead of that decent sized shield, but still looks like a shield you just carry on your arm, he now just creates this really large shield that can protect a large group of people at once. Beyond that, though, because it has a screaming mouth formation on it, the shield his right arm produces, I could imagine that he also could just fire a can of energy straight out of that. And obviously just produce a much larger bit of energy. And then I could totally see some sort of combo move attack with both of them, where he essentially kind of just balls his hands into an axe fist and gets ready, basically using the energy in his right arm to enhance the attack of his left arm, and then come in and just boom, and then I can't remember what the name of the technique he uses with the right arm is. It's blanking, but basically it'd be a mix of the two. Now, this all sounds well and good, and it would be all well and good. This would make sense for Chaz. He's very much a brawler melee type, and this Zanpakuto would definitely be a melee type Zanpakuto that just happens to have a range ability to it. But therein lies a big issue with this Zanpakuto. Against just a stronger melee foe like a Kenpachi or even an Ichigo, you would fall pretty short. Beyond that, though, he's only got one long range attack, and even though the shield is good for a decent degree in Bankai, it's still a regular shield in Shikai. I mean, it's okay size, but nothing that would be able to protect him from a Yamamoto or Hitsugaya type attack. And the fact that he's melee means that except for his one range attack, he has no way to actually fight at long range. I don't see a Chad being a Kido type Shinigami very much. He might know some Kido. I feel like it could be I feel like he's kind of like a Komamura type who relies on the brute force, but as far as I know, Komamura does in fact know at least some Kido. He's not. I don't think it's definitely not a specialty. We never really see him use it. But if you check the data books, I believe. In fact, why don't we just look up Komomura real quick? Because I feel like he's really the comparison. Komomura. Komomura. Sajin Komomura. Did he know any keto as far as we know? Let's find out, shall we? Shall we? Let's see here. Because otherwise we're pretty much done with the video today. Oh, I hate when this thing does this. The fan, for some reason, the wiki for some of these sites has been acting up as of late. Okay, let's try this again. Sajin Komomura. Did Sajin know any? Okay, why don't we go? But this route. So no, there we go. Did Sajin know any keto? I mean, I could just Google that question, but I'd rather go to like an official site for Komomura than, just Google the question. I mean, I have a I do 2 different series on Bleach alone, not to mention the Zanpakuto series with the respective leads of their universes. I know a lot about Bleach, but every once in a while, like most people, a fact will elude me. And so, because I'm not perfect, I'm not the expert on Bleach on YouTube or in general in the world. Okay, fine. You want to do it this way? We'll do it this way. Okay, does Komomura know keto? Okay. Does Sajin Komomura know keto? No keto. Let's see. Yes, as a captain, he has knowledge of. Sorry, AI. That's not how that works. The AI overviews. Yeah, as a captain, the Kenpachi knows absolutely no keto techniques whatsoever. So that does not work for your explanation. I assume, though, based on the type of captain Komomura is, and who Sajin was, that, yeah, he probably did know some keto. And I imagine that is the same kind of nature as Chad. He would know some keto. It just probably wouldn't be his forte in terms of using it. But yeah, that's the biggest problems with the Zanpakuto. It's very much a melee type Zanpakuto, save for the one range technique. It's got only so many counters. It's a very straightforward Zanpakuto. That's the thing. There's not a lot of nuance with the Zanpakuto. It's nothing like, say, a Shunsui's or a Benihime or a Katen Kyokatsui or a Benihime or a Hyorimaru. There's not a lot that there's not a lot to extrapolate with it. But sometimes at most Zanpakutos, when you really break it down, there isn't a lot of varied techniques with them. Some of them just have one straightforward ability and you just go from there. I mean, Ichigo just has Getsuga Tensho. He just developed it into also Getsuga Jujitsu as well. Renji Zabimaru, it just extends like a giant whip blade. Now, Soho Zabimaru has actually quite a few abilities to it. But that's because he trained a lot. Ichibei only has the one ability with Ichimaru, well, technically 2. But you get my point. It's like he's only got the 2 abilities. They both revolve around names. Rukia has techniques, but the main ability is just turning your body cold. That's how Zanpakuto generally work. But anyway, look, I've rambled enough. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.